So my name is Francois. I'm one of the co-founders of Enso Connect, and we have...
And my name's Austin, Austin Bernhardt. I am the sales and partnership manager here at Autohost.
Amazing. So we work in the same office, which makes things so much easier when we're organizing these kinds of webinars. And today we're going to explore a bit more about guest screening and verification solutions, some of the best practices. So don't miss this opportunity to kind of enhance the security, build that trust, and ensure long-term success for your vacation rental business. So we're going to explore some of the strategies around that. Obviously, Austin, being fully focused on this vertical, has all of the right tips and solutions. Uncover a bit more how it affects the relationship with property owners as well, ensuring that you have that kind of safety, security, and so on. And uncovering some of the threats of frauds, chargebacks, and how to prevent that for your hospitality business. So, with that being said, quick agenda for today. Number one, understanding the importance of guest screening and verification in vacation rentals. Number two, mitigating those chargebacks and sort of protecting your business against frauds and chargebacks. Three, balancing the security with the guest experience at scale. That's something that can sometimes cause issues for some operators. And then finally, implementing that guest screening and verification process in your business. So without ado, do you want to give us a little introduction maybe to start on Autohost?
Yeah, of course, and we'll definitely dive into a bit more detail on this. But yes, so Autohost is an intelligent guest screening platform designed to really understand who you're letting into your properties and making sure that you have all the information you need to make that decision. You know, are you going to have a problem with a guest, or is this best to just let them go and get a better guest in there? It's not going to cause you problems. So when we're talking about really the significance of guest screening, there's so much unknowns out there. When you are going through different OTAs to have these guests, you have to really blindly trust that these different OTAs are doing their job and vetting these guests, where you have really no control or visibility into who you're letting into your properties.
Right.
So that's really what Autohost is all about. It's really giving back that visibility and control to the operators, to the property managers, to make sure that they have exactly what they need.
That makes sense. And speaking of which, around differences between different OTAs, I guess there's Airbnb that have a few screening components.
Exactly.
You got Booking.com that doesn't really have any. So that's going to play a role as well in the verification, is looking at sort of different channels bring different types of guests.
Exactly.
And in terms of like the verification process contributing to building that trust between the property managers and the guest, maybe actually you could elaborate a bit more on that subject. Like, how does this enhance trust between property manager and guest?
Oh, of course, yeah. Well, I think especially in this industry, no matter where you're at in your business, scaling, or you have quite the portfolio already, it's all about making sure that your property owners know that you are the best person to manage their properties.
Right.
There's tons and tons of competition out there. People are pining to get properties from you. So when you're able to bring to your property owners the confidence of not only understanding fraud but preventing it, it becomes quite the differentiator for our customers that are able to use our service. Which is
that
really
makes
nice.
sense. Yeah. And I can see it as well with guests in the sense of like, your guests see it as an established business. You're using the right tools. You're collecting IDs. You're not asking things like, hey, can you send me your passport via email?
Yeah.
I got that the other day, and I was just like, I don't know. I don't really feel comfortable doing that. And you probably would get backlash for doing that. So I'm sure there's certain risks or privacy concerns associated with it. So what are some of the potential risks? And I know Ella spoke quite a bit about this subject on Clubhouse a year and a half ago.
Okay.
But what are some of the potential risks associated with the absence or inadequate screening and verification practices?
Yeah, of course. Well, there's some big number items, like really understanding who you're letting into your property with a valid ID, a valid credit card on file. These very simplistic, processes and data points, very important to have on to file, because if you don't, there's a lot of different types of fraud that happens, identity theft, chargebacks. If you don't have those solid anchor of who you're letting into your property, and then having all this extra, information that we're gathering on our customers' behalf, that's what really lets the entire risk profile and the guest is coming in fall apart if you don't have those key components.
Right.
So making sure that you have a fleshed out risk profile on each guest is super important.
And I guess it's all about thresholds as well, right? Understanding what you're comfortable with, what your owners are comfortable with, what your business is going to be comfortable with. The other item I would say around the lack or absence thereof is, I mean, we see a clear difference between people with chargebacks and the ones who don't have chargebacks.
Yeah.
And that's those who implement the right verification systems and the ones who don't. So it's not just, you know, I want to make sure my property doesn't get trashed. It's also, I want to make more money. And I don't want guests saying they never stayed there when they actually did. I mean, I think it's one of the most annoying things to see in this industry is that concept of chargebacks. And in terms of like the practices or like back to those risks associated, how is data really going to help you surface out that this guest is going to trash the place? Like, how do I know that, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And there's tons of solutions out there that are collecting an ID or collecting a credit card. Those are important things to have, but if you don't have the context and the understanding of the entire guest and the reason why they're staying, the intent or the behavior of them, that's really where chargebacks occur. These fraudsters, they know exactly how to beat these systems and get away with these chargebacks because they understand how the credit card companies work, how the banks work, and how normally operators are allowing guests into their properties.
Yeah.
So when you do have that full-fledged risk profile, when you have the digital fingerprint and the context, Autohost is actually able to catch a credit card that has not been reported stolen yet from like a credit card company, and we can know that before it's actually reported. So it's a really interesting fact when you do have the amount of data that we're collecting.
Yeah.
And putting this all together, we're able to prevent a lot of chargebacks from happening. And we're able to reduce them significantly.
Yeah. And the other thing I've heard a few clients have mentioned sometimes, like, well, I don't want to use an automated system yet. I'm going to do this myself. I'm collecting IDs. It's my way. It's fine. My team's checking it and so on. But I find that that's also prone to like potential discrimination or sort of biases that technology in of itself are going to hopefully skip when they look at risk profiles. Because a lot of the data that I see that's missing or that is not being actioned by property managers when it comes to that manual verification process is associating things like, hey, is the name on the ID the same as the name on the booking?
Yeah.
Or is this ID a real ID? Is the reservation last minute and the ID is kind of blurry, doesn't match? Like there's all these different groupings of risks that you could, obviously Autohost detects that you can use towards avoiding those chargebacks and so on. So speaking of which, let's talk a bit more about mitigating chargebacks and protecting against those fraudulent bookings. And we have it as direct bookings, but it could be really any channel, right?
Oh, of course.
So tell us a bit more about those risks around chargebacks and fraud and potential financial and reputational issues if you don't have the right security systems in place as a property manager.
Yeah, no, really good question. So when we're talking about mitigating chargebacks, when you don't have data on the guest, it really becomes a he said, she said situation, or you're now just creating disputes with credit card companies or maybe the OTA trying to get money back. Most of the time, these credit card companies or the OTAs, they're going to be siding with the guest because they're the customer and everyone else on the other side, we're just secondary.
Yeah.
So when you're able to bring objective evidence to the table saying this is the digital fingerprint of the guest that stayed, this is the rental agreement they signed, this is the credit card they enter, the ID, and everything is matching up. Because like you said, all that work that goes into the investigation, this is exactly what Autohost is doing through the Enso Connect platform, is collecting, analyzing this information, and pumping out a risk profile for you.
Right.
So the biggest way we're preventing chargebacks is mitigating them. So we're going to be identifying the potential chargebacks with a really high degree of accuracy, stopping those guests from staying from you in the first place. So this means you're not losing money and revenue, really letting these guests in and then trying to fight it afterwards and possibly not winning that. We're looking we're completely de-risking the situation and allowing good revenue to come into your doors instead of revenue that you would now have to fight tooth and nail for.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what are the different steps. So within our platform and obviously our partnership and integration, we've kind of identified it as, okay, let's collect some information about the guest, let's get their ID, and then let's sign an agreement and maybe other types of payments, so safety deposits, things like that. Can you kind of walk us through the ideal verification flow? And then I'll talk a bit more about how to avoid that within the guest experience, because that can also be the concern for some people is like, oh my God, there's so many steps and I just want to check in. So how do you bring that in? But could you kind of walk us through those different steps and what you've seen work best?
Yeah, for sure. So the one really, really nice thing about the partnership is that a lot of redundancies are going to be removed from the flow. It's not like your guests are plugging in, their first name, last name, things like that. All this is going to be auto-populated. Really, I would like to say that there's three main screens I like to see in a flow. Making sure that you have a rental agreement signed.
Yeah.
So getting the...
Always?
Yeah, always.
Regardless of the channel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no, exactly. Because there's always going to be certain aspects that maybe the OTAs won't even let you write on, your contracts. You have the full control when it is through, a third party, because your guest is, staying with you.
And sorry to interject, but just on that first step, I have heard property managers say, well, Airbnb is the merchant of record, so I don't really care because I'm not going to have to deal with it. Airbnb is going to have to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Would that, by having that rental agreement, even with Airbnb reservations, I'm assuming you kind of just protect your business yet again.
Exactly.
This is your reservation, your guest post-booking. They're just the payment system, right?
Exactly. And when it comes to those disputes with Airbnb, having, your own rental agreement saying this is the guest that, agreed to, not damage or not do this sort of activity, and they did it. And you are the merchant of record, Airbnb. I need you to collect that those extra funds, that all can happen through it. So yeah, it's really adding ammunition to your side of the of the trench there, making sure that you have that firepower to deal with the big guns like Airbnb.
So that was one of the steps, and sorry because I did interrupt you. What are the other two steps?
Yeah, the other big one is ID verification.
Okay.
So having not just collecting the ID and having it on file, actually verifying if the ID has been tampered with, if it has been photoshopped. Does the front actually match the back of the barcode? Because we're actually doing the scanning. And then of course, on the guest side of it, these are like the two screens. The third screen, of course, is credit card validation. So doing either a security deposit or just a credit card verification. When we have those three data points and plus them going through the flow, we're touching their device, their browser, which means we're collecting a lot of information on their digital fingerprint. That's pretty much the big ones that we need to get to create that risk profile, because on the back end, that's where a lot of the work is happening.
I see.
The AI, the fraud detection and prevention, these are the good data points that we need to produce that risk profile.
Credit cards, IDs, and agreements, kind of the trifecta of avoiding chargebacks in that sense.
Exactly.
Interesting that you mentioned the credit card piece. It obviously is something that's extremely important for operators to verify, especially if you're not the merchant of record, just so that you can collect payments for those reservations. But I think there's also an angle, as you pointed out, of verifying that this is in fact the guest that's going to stay.
Yes.
I do want to, and this might be throwing a wrench here in a bit in our plans before we move on to that third section, is like what how do you do it when you have guests that don't want to go through that process? Or what are some of the exceptions where you have to mitigate the risk for your business, but it's going to affect the guest experience, it's going to affect the relation with, the stay overall? How do you mitigate those risks? Do you terminate the guest and you say, well, if you don't follow my process, you're not having a vacation? Or do you adapt to it? Like, what's the best practice?
That's a really interesting question, because it really ends up being down to the preference of the property management company. We have some of our customers that have thousands of properties that are very strict with their flows. If you do not fill this information, you agreed to it, and if you don't, well, then your stay is going to be terminated. Other times, if we have some customers that it is manageable, right? We're looking Autohost and so when we're looking at guest screening specifically, we're looking to reduce 90% of the workflow that goes into checking the guest.
Yeah,
there is still value in taking a look at some of those bookings that maybe a guest is refusing to submit a certain piece. if you want to give them a call and you're talking to them, it's always in the property management's company's purview to reach out, talk to the guest, and if they feel like they want to accept the risk, they're able to, and able to push them through the flow. It's easy to do. We also have lots of different resources on our website to help vet those guests manually over the phone or via email. There are other strategies, but one of the biggest benefits of Autohost and Enso together is automating the flow and making sure that you now don't have to worry about verifying and checking each and every guest. We're gonna bring you're
just gonna surface the risky ones and tell you this one you should pay a bit more attention to, and
you got it,
and so on. No, that makes sense. And the payments piece I think is really interesting. So because we have, I guess, 3 different types of connections with you guys now, where some people can do the payments on your end, some people can do the payments on our end. On our end, we don't do verification. And you could upload a picture of your cat on Enso Connect, and it would still go through. So not the angle. That's why we push.
That's
you guys
why we work. It.
Yeah, exactly. But on the payment side, they have this concept. I've heard a lot of people know about it. 3D secure, things like that. So that's going to be part of sort of the checks and balances on the payment side for you guys, alongside all of the other data that you can surface for the risk profile. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Always improving the flow and the process. 3D secure, for example. Yeah, that's definitely something that we're working on right now, which is really exciting. But yeah, the other thing, kind of like on the same vein here, is talking about guest friction. Is with the flow, especially when you have the Enso Connect Autohost partnership, when you do have an account with Autohost, you're able to play with the risk profiles and change the flow based off the initial risk that our AI tools are analyzing.
I see.
So if you have a guest that's coming, I don't know, family of 4 coming from Europe that booked 6 months in advance, versus a last minute booking that's local to the state, we can change the flow and make sure that maybe we put you through the gauntlet there when you're booking.
I'm a high profile in Autohost. I already know it. Yeah, I checked into Romy and I got an alert and I was just like, come on.
They actually pop up your face. So it's very customizable in that sense because guest friction and the guest experience is one of our top priorities, making sure that you don't want to
prevent the bookings.
Exactly.
You want to prevent the fraudulent bookings, right?
Exactly.
Now let's go with the assumption that we do have a chargeback.
Sure.
Okay. And you went through this process. You collected the IDs, let's say with or without Autohost. In general, you went through a process internally, and you still get that chargeback. What do you do now?
Yeah. So luckily, both Enso and Autohost, we put together a chargeback report to help fight those chargebacks. I know you said, you have a basic
ours is basic.
Process.
So ours is going to be like 3, 4 maybe steps. It's going to be like the agreement, the data we collected, the IDs, and then all the check-in instructions, like when they open them, when they unlock the door if you have smart locks. And we're going to associate each of those segments with key phone data because they go through our boarding pass. It can be things like, IP address, latitude and longitude, what else? Location, the type of phone they used, all of that stuff. But I know that with Autohost, you guys have even more data to surface on that, which makes it pretty much one-click download, send, bye-bye. And by the way, we're gonna share that chargeback report example in the comments.
Yep.
We are using a phone, so I have no idea what I'm seeing right now other than a phone. But hopefully someone on the team is putting it on. Oh, hi. Oh, we're here.
There we are.
Thanks, Dennis. So that you guys can kind of see what the basic Enso Connect one is. But tell me more about Autohost's version and the kind of information you can surface.
Exactly. So really what we're doing is really enriching the chargeback report that you are putting together. There's a difference between collecting just raw data versus actually analyzing that, and that's where really the focus of Autohost is.
100%.
So what we do is we collect all the data. We have thousands of data points that we're putting together in a clean report for customers, and our customers are able to use this report to win chargebacks that they otherwise would have lost.
I see.
Which is, it's
and I probably you don't even have to compile the information.
No,
because
that's the big thing.
It's something that, like, when we first set up our upsell system, we had changed up the way we were collecting payments. We were the merchant of records, and we got a chargeback for an early check-in. And it was like, oh, I'm not going to deal with this. This is the property manager's early check-in, and now I had to get in the middle. So we switched that up, months ago, obviously. But I remember having to go through the flow, and it was my first time dealing with a chargeback, and it's like so many different steps. And if you kind of have one shot. Like, it's not like you can go back really and be like, wait, never mind. I forgot to let you know. Also, it's like you have to compile all of this information and you have to make a compelling case for someone who is most likely lying about the service that you did provide and just trying to make extra money or save extra money. I find it despicable that people would do that. It's just like so many businesses are trying to, grow and stuff. And then you have these troublesome guests that are putting you down. But so you guys make that compilation of all this information, accessible, easy, one click, upload, done, call it a day.
And what I love the most about the partnership with Enso is Autohost really is just the check-in part of it. What you have on your side is so much more information on the overall stay. So adding that extra, door lock information, this is strengthening the case, right? We're taking 1 + 1 and equaling it to 3. You know, that's a really powerful tool
100%.
That we put together. So I think using.
It's cool, we're based in Toronto, so it's like the easiest thing ever. No, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk a bit about balancing security and guest experience at scale. So we've already kind of touched on a few of these. So we've talked a bit about the process. You discussed using AI. I guess in terms of enhancing communication with guests, and I'll touch a bit on that. What I've noticed is based on different channels, there's different ways of approaching the subject of verification.
Yeah.
That's something we've seen a lot where Airbnb guests will be a bit more frightened by the idea of uploading their IDs somewhere and sharing information because that's what Airbnb provides is a sense of, hey, everything happens on Airbnb, the payments, the verification, etc. On the other hand, there's certain OTAs that shall not be named, Booking.com, that can have a lot more issues in that sense, and because they might not have the right checks and balances, or maybe, I notice as well, it depends on location. So communicating with guests ahead of time or as you're going through this process, explaining to them why you're doing it, the security behind the systems that you use. And this is where going back to the whole collecting IDs via email versus collecting IDs in a secured portal, night and day. But are there any other tips that you would say on the communication side that seem to work best? Maybe it's permutations on channels. Maybe it's permutations on last minute bookings versus non-last minute bookings. Do you have any tips on that?
Of course. So what Autohost does when, we have a new customer come in, they mostly haven't thought about this, all the little steps that go into making a clean guest experience with guest screening involved. And that's what we do. That's our expertise. So what we do is in the onboarding process is, going into each listing on the OTAs, adding some information saying, hey, guest, when you're booking, you will be required to submit an ID, credit card, blah, blah, blah. Making sure that they're really aware of the
it's
flow.
not a surprise.
It's exactly. There's nothing worse than saying, wait, like, why am I doing this? I didn't know. And that you create that animosity between, the guests. So that's never fun. So that's what we're looking to avoid. Making sure that the initial email that goes out or text message, whatever the property management company is looking for, making sure that's also clear. This is a requirement to complete your stay. You have not fully, confirmed your booking until this step is complete. Making sure a lot of times property management companies will put in some sort of solution for guest screening, but they'll make it an optional, flow. If you make it optional, then nobody's going to do it. Sure, you might have a little bit of friction for a small amount of guests, but it's much more easy to deal with than having to chase a million people for their identification.
Yeah, and how does that work? I'm gonna touch on a few subjects that aren't necessarily on our agenda today, just because this conversation is so exciting. Obviously, it also changes based on countries. There's certain aspects around ID collection and data compliance, if you will, and we'll touch the privacy aspect in a minute, but that are going to differ from countries. So, like Italy, I've learned that you have to collect IDs and you have to submit them to the regional offices. Same with Spain, it's La Guardia Nacional. In Dubai, same thing. In the US, not at all.
Nope.
Canada, I'm not sure. So there's also different regulations on that. Does Autohost allow you to collect not just the primary booker's information, but also subsequent guests? Because maybe, you know, the primary booker's the nice person, but then there's like 5 other people that are going to probably trash the place or do something bad. Is that part of the process as well?
Yeah, no, it's a good question as well. So yeah, there is automatic authority reporting and collection of that information. The primary guest is definitely the main one we're going to be focusing on, and making sure that that primary guest is understanding that they are now responsible for this stay, and they're going to keep their group in line.
Yeah.
Because when you have a guest going through that, doesn't feel like they could probably get away with some damage or some things because they can't, you know, find that guest after this day. That's a big problem, and also a reason why chargebacks can happen as well. Kind of touching back to the previous section. So yeah, really interesting part of it. I think overall, making sure that you do have this information on file is definitely the first step in preventing those types of problems.
I like that you guys touch a lot at Autohost, and I hear it in the side conversations when I'm grabbing coffee, but in general around trust, because I think one of the key elements in what you guys are doing is all about trust between the property manager and the guest, trust between the property manager and the owner, but even trust between us as partners, because you're collecting such sensitive information.
Of course.
You know, you've got a founder that's cybersecurity and expert in those fields, which, you know, when you're collecting IDs, you best make sure that it's well secured. Could you talk a bit more about the privacy aspect and the security aspect as well that Autohost brings to that layer of verification?
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah, you definitely touched on a big point. Autohost's background, it comes from cybersecurity. So our founder has really built the entire technology and the privacy involved, and it's the level of a cybersecurity standard, right? That's a big value that Autohost is able to bring into the hospitality industry, is that understanding of privacy, and really looking at some of the other solutions that might be out there. It's really interesting to see that they have not really thought much about actually protecting user data and how to securely collect this information. So it makes it very easy to create partnerships with companies that you have such a fantastic idea on how to deliver a fantastic experience, and let Autohost be the cybersecurity expert.
To power it behind.
To power behind it. And 100%. I think that's why we work so well together.
100%. And another question, I should have addressed this just earlier on. We talked about ID collection, agreements, and the payments piece. On the ID collection, front, back, selfie.
Yeah,
front selfie, back selfie. What's the best combination here?
Back of the head.
Back of the head and the selfie.
Right. No, that's a good part. Part of the ID collection is also a selfie scan as well. We want to do a biometric scan to make sure that the picture in the ID matches the photo, the selfie photo.
Now, I had a great question about this from an operator or demo that I had a few weeks ago around, can you upload a picture versus take a picture? And I thought it was a really interesting question, because then it's like I can Google the Facebook guy's profile picture and match it. So what do you guys do in that sense?
That's a really great question. So
sorry, I'm asking all these
this is great. I love
not
it.
Even on the list.
No, this is great, because it reminds me of a reservation that one of our customers had probably now around 8 months ago.
Okay.
The ID was a picture of the ID, but it was on a browser. So you could see that it was on a browser, on a screen. And same thing with the selfie. It was a picture of a picture. So really, the ID part checked out. It verified.
Because it's a real ID.
Because it's a real ID, and that's the fraudster knew that.
Yeah.
But where the benefit and why we were able to catch this is that the other parts of the profile didn't connect. They didn't match. So that's the thing. When you're looking at these single points of verifications, if you don't have that context and the full picture, that's how things can get passed, right? So looking at the information that we've collected, we're able to notify our customer, and they were able to cancel that booking before they did whatever they were planning. Because it was when you have that much premeditated intent behind a booking, those are the very scary ones, right?
I had a reservation, actually, I think it was like 4 or 5 months ago, speaking of funny stories like this, and Autohost wasn't set up, right? And the client was like, we want to get Autohost set up, and we hadn't done it just yet. and the reservation name was DJ something.
DJ.
I think we all know where this went.
Yeah.
And it was funny because, well, the ID was fine and the selfie was fine and all that was fine, but it obviously didn't match the reservation name. So it would have been flagged, and then all it would have taken is just to see that the name is DJ, and you would have probably been like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
This is not in an old Victorian home. I don't necessarily want DJ, whatever his name was, to show up. So that was an unfortunate one. Now they use Autohost, and I haven't seen any issues since. So that's really cool. The one thing I always love to talk about is sort of the three key as vendors in the industry, right? We're not the most liked in the industry because people don't want to be sold all the time, you know? And so I find that, you know, property managers rely a lot on each other, and you guys have built such a fantastic network of property managers, some big company names that work with Autohost. Do you find that there's learnings between these different accounts where you can start seeing patterns, like urban destinations have this type of better screening or more fraud in this area? Very random question. Have you guys looked at that kind of information or that data?
Yeah, well, of course. So what Autohost is doing, when, you know, we've processed probably 1 million plus reservations by now, and we're using our AI, our machine learning, to determine behavior, right? You know, what type of booking, what type of, you know, flags end up creating this type of result or incident. Right. And each time, you know, we add a new customer and we have a new demographic, we have a new sort of situation, that is going to add more context and make the product better. Right. So that's the one really exciting thing is, on the back end, every time we have that, you know, we're growing and getting better. On a more surface level, our customers will talk to each other. They'll share best practices, and we'll see different ways that some customers will want to run their flow. And we can use that to say, hey, we've seen really great results by, you know, how property management company A does things. We should apply that to new customers coming in.
That makes sense.
So it's definitely a always evolving process and flow that gets better and better.
And I love it because you touch on one key element of, I think, what property managers do care about. Like it actually brings us RBO, rent by owner, but it's not RBO. It's revenue, bookings, owners. Those are like the three main things that I hear every time I get on a call with the property manager. That's like, if you can bring me more revenue, if you can bring me more owners, or if you can bring me more bookings, I am happy, right? And so you got different software that can help with this. Now, verification feels like one of those things. Sometimes you're like, oh, it's just an added step. I don't security. But actually, it touches a lot on bringing more owners and bringing in more revenue
100%.
And quality bookings. So it's like the full trifecta. Do you want to kind of touch up on RB&O?
Yeah, RB&O. So
I'm going to coin that, by the way.
That's good.
I
like it.
Trademark.
Trademark. So yeah, when we're talking about revenue and how to use guest screening and a guest flow to improve your revenue, there's a lot of times we're talking to brand new property owners that are looking into the solution, and they talk about, oh yeah, you know, we restrict certain types of bookings. We don't look at booking.com because there's too much fraud on it.
Right.
We don't.
And those are missed opportunities.
Exactly. We don't allow bookings less than 30 days in advance or something like that.
Because it's Toronto regulations.
Oh, is that? Yeah. Or, you know, we don't allow last minute bookings or, you know, local bookings. There's a lot of restrictions that property management companies put into place because that's just how they've been doing it, and that's how they have learned to reduce their risk without technology. So when you do bring Autohost into the mix and in a full-fledged guest screening flow, you now have the safety of opening up those revenue channels. That was money that was left on the table. We're now giving you the confidence and security to start taking that money back on the table and still avoiding the ones that you were worried about in the first place. Right. You know, the false positive rate on Autohost is ridiculously low. You know, every time we're vetting and noticing that there's a red flag or inconsistency, it's probably going to be that.
Very accurate.
So it's very accurate in that sense. So you're not going to get burned opening up these new channels. And, you know, sure, I made X amount of money because I opened this channel, but I had all these problems. It's really going to be
so it's quality revenue. Being able to open more channels because you can take those risks because you have the right risk prevention systems, if you will.
Exactly.
And then talk a bit more about the owners, because
Right.
I feel like that's a huge part.
This is my favorite.
As a homeowner, and I'm not, I rent, but like if I had a home and I wanted to give it to someone to manage, it's like, well, this is my, savings that you're taking care of, and I want to make sure that you take good care of it. So how does that play into the owner piece?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this first dawned on me, the actual value of this to our customers. I was talking to a customer of ours, Killian from Hosty. They're in
Yes,
Arizona.
Yeah.
So
100%.
he's on acquisitions. He's head of acquisitions at Hosty, or maybe that's his title might have changed a little bit.
Yeah.
But we're talking at a show, and he's like, "Yeah, Aust, I use Autohost in my pitches all the time."
Yeah.
Reaching out and knocking on a new property owner's door saying, "Hey, this is how we understand risk, and this is how we prevent it." Every property owner or property management company that knocks on your door is going to offer you and tell you they're going to make you all this revenue. 100%. You're going to make money on your property. 100%. Let's take that all aside, and let's talk about security. Let's talk about keeping your property safe and your investment safe.
I love that.
So it really is a strong differentiator for property management companies that use that in their pitches. Gives the property owner that confidence and understanding. These guys know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
They know the industry, and they know how to prevent these issues that the property owner is afraid of. So it can be a very powerful tool. And we've seen, some of our customers, they've started at like 40 properties with us, and now they're at like a couple thousand. I'm not saying it's all of us, of course. They've probably done a couple things right, but I like to think that Autohost
part of the story.
has played an important
100%.
part in that story.
Well, you're saving people time. You're bringing in that trust again. Back to that same word. You're bringing R, B, and O.
Yeah.
No, I think the concept of verification has been a lead sort of magnet and driver for Enso Connect as well, which is why we partnered with Autohost. For context, everyone who's listening to the webinar, so Enso Connect is fully integrated and a real integration with Autohost. There's 3 different types of ways of working in this context. You can use one of our preset packages, which means if you have less than 25 units, you can still get access to Autohost, because I know you guys kind of block it off anything under 25 units.
Yeah, at least a direct integration with Autohost. Right. There's just it can be a complicated product. We want to simplify it for those less than 25 units.
Before you open it up.
Exactly. There's lots to do. You already have so much on your plate. Let's make sure this is all set up automatically for you through Enso. Makes it easy.
100%. And then, of course, if you have more than 25 units, you can open up a sub-account on Enso, which gives you the sort of granular flexibility to configure whatever you want in Autohost without necessarily having to do a full-on onboarding, which I think I like. And then there's the third version, which I know we just did this with Romy, which is like they were already clients of Autohost, and so they can kind of connect their tools. Amazing. So implementing guest screening, budget. Let's talk about budget a bit.
Sure.
Like, how much does this stuff cost? Like, how do I get things done where I'm not breaking bank on implementing safety, and how do I sort of evaluate and assess the ROI on it? Because at the end of the day, RBO, right? So
number one. It's a great question. So when we're talking about Autohost and the value of guest screening, we're going to make sure that we find a package and plan that works best for each customer, because what we've at least seen in the industry is each and every property management company is quite different in how they operate, their demographic, and what's important to them.
Yeah.
So like on a simple side of it, making sure that we have flexibility on do you want to pay on a per reservation cost, or maybe just a flat unit rate that we kind of cover all your reservations coming in. That's definitely something we're able to do.
Yeah.
And really picking and choosing, what verifications are important to you.
That's what I like.
Exactly.
The configuration piece that you guys have. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And of course, when budget is involved, thinking to really how much money not having Autohost is causing. Autohost, we guaranteed ROI. That's a big thing for us. We want to make sure that our customers see the return on their investment, because let's call it $2 to $3 per reservation or something like that, just an arbitrary number. If you're looking at that number, if you're spending that on your guest screening, how much money is that $3 actually saving you along the line?
Yeah.
You know, how much time is your team putting into investigations for chargebacks?
And that one chargeback that doesn't go through, that's $300, is 30 of those reservations that you could have saved at $1 or $10 or however much your different prices are going to be. So yeah, no, there's clear ROI. Do you guys map that and share this with your users?
Yeah, we do quarterly reviews with each of our customers to show them, what we've done in that quarter, the types of reservations that were had. We also even look at, where are your risky bookings coming from?
Right.
Obviously, it's probably going to be like a booking.com, for example, but we've seen a lot of, fascinating results from some of our customers where they are seeing like a lot of fraud and incidents from Airbnb guests. Because when Airbnb has such a large share of the market, you're going to have all sorts of guests going through there. And that's a big thing that we're able to do is help our customers determine, okay, where do we want to put our marketing efforts? What OTAs do we want to focus on? And, a lot of the times as well, our property management companies, they will not be too focused on their direct bookings. Because of the fraud, and they don't have a way.
They're scared to go into direct bookings because of the potential for fraud. You open those doors. And it makes sense. A last minute reservation on your direct booking website.
Scary.
It's just like, who is this person? How the hell did you find out about us? And
is our marketing that good?
Is our marketing that good? Exactly. So you're like building, you start getting your concerns or your trust issues there, but you guys remove that as well, regardless of the channels, the length of the lead booking time, or any of the other factors.
Exactly. Yeah, building your direct booking channel is a great way to consolidate your revenue, making sure that you're not paying all these different fees to OTAs. So that's a big thing that we're able to do and make sure that our customers are able to grow and scale their business how they want to.
Yeah, and it's diversifying your distribution, which is, I think, the key principles to a certain extent of any investment strategy. In this case, the revenue piece of your business. So. No, I love it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you sharing all of these insights. So we're going to open up the floor now for questions. So any questions that you might have around verification, around what are the different processes, what you should be doing, feel free to add them into the chat or any of the other places it's being live streamed on. I cannot see the questions right now at all, so we're going to have to wait until one pops up, or if Dennis, you have anything that pops up. In the meantime, do you have any tips or tricks for someone who wants to implement something? Well, let's say they want to implement Autohost, or in general, they want to take those first kinds of steps towards thinking about verification. They may not be ready to jump right into it. Do you have any tips for that?
Of course. So some of the things you're able to do before you're putting in like an automated solution is really changing your perspective on how you're looking at guests coming into your doors. A lot of the times, you're going to have good guests and no one that's looking to cause any harm or problems. And then, of course, you're going to have that small amount of guests that are looking to, mess with you. So each time that a real guest, a real person is just looking to stay with you without any incident, there is going to be consistency throughout their entire profile. The information that they're giving you on the website, the story that they tell you, it's going to be, pretty obvious that this is a real person. There's a lot of times when fraudsters, they're looking to obscure or, confuse the property owner, property management company with information.
Right.
And each time that, you have a guest that's getting through those doors, I think even maybe, Francois, you told me this story about, or no, I remember who it was. It was Red Cottages, actually. They had
I should have called them on Friday.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
they're great. So they
Up
had
in New Jersey?
Or I think it's New York State. Or,
New York State.
I think
somewhere
there.
I just had a call.
Yeah.
Literally.
So they're pretty fantastic. And what they had is they had a guest come in. Everything looked good on Airbnb, and once they entered the place, their Airbnb profile changed to a random, Russian name, and it looked like they completely change their entire profile.
Interesting.
Like, you let in John Smith, and then, someone...
Vladimir came in.
Yeah, exactly. So luckily, nothing happened to this day. There was no damage. But this is, what I said to Matt. I was like, wow, like what we've seen in those types of situations when these data points change so dramatically is that this was probably some sort of, sex trafficking or some sort of really intense crime that might have been happening in your unit. So
interesting.
It's a big reputational
we didn't touch on that too much, but it's true. It's not just about protecting your asset, but it's also like if you're going to play a part in a community, and be the sort of manager in that community with vacation rentals and so on. If you're playing a role in sex trafficking in your town or your city,
it's terrifying.
It's absolutely terrifying, and it's not just sex trafficking; it's drugs. It could be guns. It could be all sorts of criminal activities. And vacation rentals are super easy for that because of the lack of trust and sort of accountability.
Yeah, there's no process.
There's no process. Yeah, it's really you're renting a place. Yeah, hotels, for example, when you check into a hotel, they always ask you for incidental purposes your ID and maybe a payment on your card and so on. But really, what they're doing is exactly what we're talking about today. Just making it sound like it's for incidentals if you steal the TV, which I'm sure it is. But it's also probably to prevent those kinds of issues and chargebacks and so on.
Exactly.
So I think there's a lot to be inspired from the hotel space, moving that into the vacation rental space, but accommodating for the fact that, every vacation rental management company is different. And I think you guys provide the perfect flexibility for that. Amazing. Do you have anything else that you want to add or any other things that you want to share with the audience maybe?
Well, I think just kind of how you talked about reputation in that community, I find that all of us in this industry, it's such a fast moving and rapidly growing industry. We all have a responsibility to protect the industry and making sure that these new imposing regulations are coming from the fear that and the distrust in the industry when we're allowing these types of bookings from happening and these parties, these drug deals, these sex trafficking activities to happen in our cities, in our communities. That's where the regulations are coming from. That's a big thing that Autohost is able to help with, right?
Yeah.
Is bringing that confidence back and allowing the industry to grow without a tarnished reputation.
I love that.
So I think that's a really important thing that at least I'm pushing towards in the industry.
100%, and doing so very well. Amazing. Well, on that note, we're gonna wrap up the this webinar. I appreciate Austin making the move from this room to that room to do this webinar. That was really appreciative there. But if anyone has any questions around reaching out to Autohost or wanting to get set up on Autohost, so for Enso Connect, quite simple. Just go on our website, book a demo. You can check out our pricing. You can even see the preset packages we have with Autohost and how much it costs, how it works, and so on. Mm-hmm. And you can always reach out to us on our website. We have a little chat bubble, and usually someone will respond. How about yourselves?
Yeah.
How does someone reach out to learn more about Autohost or figure out if it's something for their business?
Well, actually, I think just yesterday we just launched a new website, so go check it out. Yeah, I bet you haven't seen it yet.
I didn't see it yet.
So we're really excited about that. So lots of information, tips and tricks on how to vet guests. And of course, reach out to our team. We'll be able to book a demo and show you a little bit more about Autohost. I would also say through Enso Connect, it's very easy to click set up and at least get a taste for what Autohost is doing. And if you do need that more customization or a bit more in-depth screening, then we can then it's even easier to get connected and set things up.
Yeah, I just DM him on Slack.
Exactly.
I need another account.
Exactly.
Amazing.
So it's pretty easy.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Really appreciate your time. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And this was best practices on verifications, voiding chargebacks, and such with Autohost.
Awesome.
Austin from Autohost.
Awesome.
I'm going to call you Autohost. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.